That morning, New York sparkled like a crown, and a 6-year-old girl walked barefoot into a billionaire's tower. She wasn't there to beg. She was there to work. The lobby of Mercer Tower was icy cold. Light bounced off the marble floor as streams of people in tailored suits flowed past like a river. Lily Hart clutched a crumpled plastic bag, her eyes red after a sleepless night. Her small heart trembled with fear, yet beat with stubborn resolve. "Mom can't die. I have to earn money. Today. Go find your mother, kid," the guard barked, his voice sharp as metal. Lily didn't move. She sat on the cold floor, her dirty feet curling up from the chill. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She just held the bag tighter, took a deep breath, and told herself, "If they kick me out, I'll come back." 10 times, 50 times. Amid the polished shoes and expensive perfume, Amanda Lee, an administrative staff member, stopped in her tracks. Her expression softened. She bent down and spoke gently. "What's your name?" "I'm Lily. My mom is being kicked out of the hospital. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for work." The words hit Amanda's chest like a struck bell. This child is so brave and so desperate. She stood up, facing the uneasy looks of the guard and a few co-workers. "Come with me," Amanda said, holding out one hand while clutching a stack of files with the other. The elevator shot upward like a silver arrow, the top floor. Wind slipped through the gap in the glass doors. Inside, Jonathan John Mercer was signing a stack of documents, his pen slicing the paper like a scalpel. Cold. Focused. In his world, everything had to run like a Swiss watch. No room for chaos. Certainly not for a child. "Sir, there's a special case," Amanda began. "Do I look like I have time for that?" John didn't look up. Lily stood straight, her small hands trembling as she pulled out a wrinkled sheet of paper, a crayon drawing, a little girl giving a flower to a man. Scrawled beneath it were the words, "Please let me work. I can clean shoes. I can sweep floors. My mom is dying." The air in the room shifted. John slowly lifted his head. His eyes landed on the dirt-streaked legs, the faded dress, and the tears barely held back. Then a memory struck like lightning. His own daughter, 6 years old, hospital, disinfectant smell, the warmth fading from his hands. The pen slipped from his fingers. "What's your name?" "I'm Lily. I can wash, clean, or run errands. Please don't let my mom die. I don't want her to end up like my dad." The last sentence pierced through John's armor. 1 heartbeat. 2. He rose from his chair, walked around the desk, and knelt until his eyes met hers. The coldest man in the tower lowered himself before a child. "You want to work?" Lily nodded quickly. "Come." The glass doors closed behind them. The entire executive floor fell silent. Phones were secretly lifted behind briefcases, screens flashing. "He's holding her hand. Mr. Mercer just smiled." The rumor raced down the building like an electric current. In the car, the city blurred past the tinted windows. Lily glanced at the man beside her. He no longer looked frightening, no longer just a suit and a diamond watch. He looked worried. His hands trembled slightly as he unfolded her drawing. "Sir, are you sure you'll help my mom?" Lily asked softly. John swallowed hard. "Yes. What's her name?" "Rachel. She's my best friend." A rare smile appeared, thin but real. "How long has it been since I felt this, Emily?" In his mind, his late daughter's name surfaced, gentle and aching. East River Community Hospital came into view, peeling paint, damp air, long hallways filled with weary eyes. Lily jumped out, running inside, her small feet tapping across the tile floor. Room 14. "No payment! Remove the IV and discharge her!" a nurse snapped when she saw them. John froze. His face drained of color. then turned slowly. The bill. How much? Who are you? The man who will shut this hospital down if you delay another minute. No one moved. Then everything erupted at once. They rushed to transfer the patient, called the doctor, brought clean sheets. The head physician ran over and bowed. Lily stood at the door, eyes wide and shining like tiny stars. He made the whole world move for Mom. Inside the private room, Rachel lay pale and weak. Her eyelids fluttered as Lily held her hand. Mom, I brought someone good. Rachel tried to open her eyes, seeing a stranger whose gaze was both warm and deep. Who is he? Why do I want to trust him immediately? John stepped back, allowing mother and daughter to touch with breath alone. He gave brief, decisive instructions. As the doctor began the examination, John sat down on a plastic chair by the window. The autumn wind slipped through the curtains, carrying the salty scent of the river. In the steady beeping of the heart monitor, John realized something. A 6-year-old girl had just pulled him out of an invisible abyss he'd been drowning in for years. Outside, New York roared on. But in this quiet room, a promise was taking shape. I won't let this child fight alone anymore. That afternoon, golden sunlight streamed through the hospital window, reflecting in the wide, bright eyes of Lily Hart. The little girl sat beside her mother's bed, gently swinging her legs and softly humming an old tune. On the table, a plate of cold rice and some leftover meat sat untouched. But inside the room, Rachel Hart's cheeks had regained a faint flush of color. The IV dripped slowly. In the chair near the window, Jonathan Mercer sat in silence. He wasn't looking at his phone. He wasn't signing papers. He wasn't giving orders. He simply watched the mother and child, and for the first time in a long while, that silence didn't feel empty. Thank you, sir, Lily said softly, her eyes still fixed on her mother's hand. From now on, they won't kick my mom out anymore, right? John nodded, his deep voice steady. No one has the right to throw a patient out of a hospital. The words hung in the air, firm and certain, as if he wasn't speaking to Lily, but to his own conscience. A moment later, he stood up and gestured to Amanda Lee, who had just brought in a bag of supplies. Get a few sets of new clothes for her and some proper food. Amanda nodded quietly. As she stepped out, John sat back down, his hand brushing against the crayon drawing Lily had left on the bedside table. A red streak smudged across the page. It was the flower the little girl had drawn for the kind man. He pressed his lips together, a tightness rising in his throat. Later that night, the streetlights outside cast a dim glow through the fogged window. John stepped into the hallway and spoke quietly with the doctor. How long will she need to recover? Maybe a few weeks, if she's cared for properly and has the right diet. John thought for a moment, then pulled out his wallet and took out a platinum card. This is an advance. Send all expenses directly to Mercer Group. The doctor's eyes widened. Mr. Mercer, you really? This isn't about kindness, John interrupted. It's because a child just taught me something the world has long forgotten. Courage. He turned back toward the small window in the door. Through the glass, he saw Lily fast asleep beside her mother's hand, her breathing soft and even, her tiny fingers still wrapped around Rachel's. The yellow light made her messy hair glow like a faint halo. John exhaled quietly. For the first time in years, he felt truly alive. The next morning, Mercer Tower came alive with the sound of footsteps, the hiss of the espresso machine, and the low murmur of gossip. Everything stopped when the golden elevator doors opened. Jonathan Mercer stepped out, but not alone. Beside him walked Lily, dressed in a brand new white dress, her hair neatly tied, still clutching her old plastic bag. Every eye turned toward them. A young executive whispered, "What on earth?" Did he adopt an orphan? Another replied, That's the girl from yesterday. He actually brought her to work? John heard everything. He stopped in the middle of the lobby, lifted his head, and said clearly, Everyone, this is Lily Hart. Starting today, she's my special assistant. Silence spread across the hall. And remember, anyone who disrespects her disrespects me. The lobby fell completely still. Some forced a polite smile, others looked awkward. But Lily's eyes sparkled shyly. She glanced around and whispered, Sir, are they scared of you? John bent down slightly and smiled. No, they're just learning how to behave. When they reached his office, Lily stood in awe. The room was wide and bright, with glass walls overlooking the New York skyline. Next to his walnut desk, John had set up a small corner. A study table, colored paper, a box of crayons, and a few toys. This is for you. I don't know how to use all of it, Lily murmured. You'll learn, John replied, his voice soft as a breeze. Amanda brought in a glass of juice and a box of pastries, watching the scene with warmth in her chest. She whispered to a coworker, I've never seen the boss like this before. John crouched slightly and asked, So, my assistant, what do you want to do first today? I want to clean the desk, Lily said eagerly. John laughed, a real laugh, one that hadn't touched his face in years. All right, just be careful not to wipe away my $1 million contracts. The entire room burst into laughter. For the first time, it wasn't cold. As evening fell, John signed the last contract of the day. Lily had fallen asleep in her small chair, still clutching a crayon. On the paper was a drawing of two people, one tall, one small, holding hands as they walked through a city filled with lights. In the corner, a child's crooked handwriting read, You're not sad anymore. John stared at those words for a long time. Something inside him felt whole again. Outside, New York glowed like honey, and in the highest office of the city, a lonely man had just found a reason to smile once more. That Tuesday morning, the atmosphere inside Mercer Tower felt different. The CEO's office, once known for its strict silence, now echoed with soft laughter, a sound no one had heard there for years. Lily Hart was perched on a chair far too big for her, holding a crayon and tilting her head as she asked, Mr. John, when I draw you, should I include your wrinkles? Jonathan Mercer looked up from a pile of files, the corner of his lips curving faintly. Draw exactly what you see. Then I'll need a lot of gray crayons. The room burst into laughter. The 6-year-old, so small amid the steel and glass, had somehow melted the tension that had ruled that office for years. But elsewhere on the 45th floor, someone's hands were clenched so tightly they turned white. Vanessa Carr, the vice president, the woman the entire corporation respected, and the one who had stood beside John for 5 long years. She once believed she knew every glance, every breath he took. But this morning, as she opened the door, the sight before her pierced straight through her heart. Jonathan Mercer, the famously cold man, known for never smiling at anyone, was sitting still while a little girl giggled in his lap, drawing on his face with a crayon. A hot wave rose in her chest. Vanessa froze by the glass doorway, her lips pressed tight. I've given him my youth, carried this company with him through endless nights, and just one strange child can make him smile like that? The door slammed open. John. The sound startled Lily, and the crayon fell from her hand. The air turned cold in an instant. Jonathan looked up, his expression shifting from surprise to calm. Vanessa. Forgive me, but I have to ask. Her voice rising sharply. What is going on here? Why is a child in this office? Lily lowered her head, retreating toward her small desk, her eyes brimming. John stood, his tone steady. She's not just a child. Her name is Lily, and she's here because I want her to be. Vanessa frowned. A 6-year-old? In the CEO's office? Are you serious? This is a company, not a daycare. Amanda Lee, passing by with a cup of coffee, froze mid-step. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Lily whispered, I just wanted to help him clean. Vanessa spun around, her eyes sharp as blades. And cleaning girls are allowed on the top floor now? How very... That's enough. John's voice sliced through the air, low and cold. Vanessa stopped, but the hurt in her eyes twisted into anger. I've stood beside you through every project, every deal. I thought I knew you, John. But apparently all it takes is one filthy little street kid to make you change. The room went silent. Lily looked down, her tiny fists clenched. John took a slow, deliberate step toward Vanessa. Vanessa, he said quietly, but each word landed heavy, you're one of the smartest people I've ever worked with. But you've just forgotten the most basic thing. And what's that? She challenged. Compassion. The word froze her in place. John met her gaze, his eyes filled not with anger, but with disappointment. You don't have to understand why she's here, but you will learn to respect her. Vanessa let out a bitter, shaky laugh. Respect? You never respected my feelings, Jonathan. I gave you everything, my trust, my loyalty, sleepless nights, and you only ever saw me as your subordinate. But that little girl, she got your smile in one day. Silence thickened. The only sound was the soft hum of the air conditioner. John's fists tightened slightly as he replied, calm but firm, because she reminded me that I'm still human. Vanessa trembled. She didn't answer, only took a sharp breath and turned on her heel. Her high heels struck the floor, each step heavy with fury. The door slammed shut. Lily stood by her desk, small and anxious. Did I make you mad? John walked over, knelt so his eyes met hers, and his tone softened. No, Lily, you did nothing wrong. Sometimes grown-ups forget what really matters. What's that? That a single smile can save someone. Lily looked at him and smiled faintly. John picked up the fallen crayon and placed it back in her hand. Keep drawing, my little assistant. She nodded. In the golden afternoon light, filtering through the glass, her small shoulders trembled, then slowly relaxed. Each stroke of color she laid on the paper seemed to drop warmth into the hollow space in his heart. Outside, Vanessa Carr stood in the corridor, her back against the glass wall. Tears slipped down her face, but her expression was hard as stone. In her eyes burned more than pain. There was a spark of something darker. Envy. If that girl can change him, she thought, then I'll make the world remember her past. And when that happens, we'll see how long he can protect her. From that first laugh in the halls of Mercer Tower, unseen storms had already begun to stir. Night fell over New York. Beneath a sky painted with city lights, Vanessa Carr sat alone in her high-rise apartment, swirling a glass of red wine in her hand. The glow from the skyline cast shifting reflections across her face, beautiful but cold. The sound of laughter from that morning still echoed in her mind. The rare smile of Jonathan Mercer, not meant for her, but for a child. At the table nearby, two men in dark suits sat silently, waiting for her command. They were private investigators, experts at digging into the past of anyone Vanessa wanted. Begin, she ordered, her voice smooth but sharp as a blade. I want to know everything about that girl, her parents, where she lives, her school, everyone she's ever met. The taller man nodded, opened his laptop, and began to report. We found her. Her name is Lily Hart. Foster mother's name is Rachel Hart, 31 years old, formerly a janitor in the Bronx, currently a patient at East River Community Hospital. Foster mother? Vanessa raised an eyebrow. Not her biological mother? The other man opened a thin file. His tone even. No, ma'am. 6 years ago, according to a retired nurse, Rachel found a newborn abandoned behind a warehouse near Avalon Lounge, Midtown. The baby was wrapped in a torn cloth, along with a handwritten note from an anonymous mother. Rachel took the infant to a clinic, but no one ever came to claim her. After a few weeks, she brought the baby home and raised her without any legal documentation. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, her lips curving slightly. An abandoned child, and now she's being treated like gold by the CEO of Mercer Group? The shorter man hesitated. Yes, it's possible Mr. Mercer doesn't know about her past. Vanessa let out a small, hollow laugh. That's fine. The world will know soon enough. 2 days later, headlines blazed across every major financial site, red and bold like a knife wound. Billionaire Mercer adopts abandoned child girl not biologically related to ill mother. Alongside it were photos taken from afar, Rachel leaving the hospital, her eyes weary. Lily sitting by the window of the hospital room, feeding her mother porridge. And a close-up shot of a blood-stained piece of cloth labeled "the place where the baby was abandoned." The internet erupted. Comments poured in like a tidal wave. So touching, but is it true? Poor child. Maybe it's a PR stunt for Mercer Group. Inside the CEO's office, Amanda Lee hurried in, hands trembling as she held out her iPad. Sir, you need to see this. Jonathan Mercer looked up from the document he was signing, his eyes sharp as steel. The moment he saw the headline, his face went pale. Get communications on the line, now. Amanda swallowed hard. Do you know who might have done this? John gripped his pen so tightly the plastic cracked. I have a feeling. Across the city, Vanessa sat in the private room of an upscale restaurant, a glass of wine in hand, a faint smirk playing on her lips as she watched the article spread. A colleague nearby joked, Is that story even true? News doesn't have to be true, she replied, eyes still fixed on her screen. It just has to be on time. Yet, for a brief second, something flickered inside her. A trace of guilt, a bitter taste at the back of her throat. Have I gone too far? She pushed the thought away. Love and power can't coexist, she whispered to herself. If he didn't choose me, then he'll lose what he did choose. Meanwhile, at East River Hospital, Rachel was tucking Lily into bed when the door burst open. A reporter slipped inside, camera raised. Mrs. Rachel, do you have any comment about faking your daughter's identity to get close to Billionaire Mercer? Rachel froze. What did you just say? The man shoved a microphone toward her. People are saying you're not the biological mother, that you used the girl to gain Mercer's help. Is that true? Get out! The shout made everyone turn. Jonathan Mercer stood at the doorway, his eyes blazing. Do you have permission to film inside this hospital? The reporter stammered. I just what? Harassing a sick woman and a child? John snatched the camera and hurled it to the floor. Leave, now! The man fled, pale and trembling. John turned to Rachel, his tone softening. Are you all right? Rachel shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. I didn't do anything wrong, Mr. Mercer. I just wanted to save her. John placed his hands on her shoulders. I know. His gaze shifted toward Lily, who was asleep, her face peaceful as an angel's amid the storm. Inside him, a decision began to form, clear, sharp, and irreversible. I'll find out who did this, he said quietly, and I won't let anyone lay a finger on that child, not even with words. That night, Jonathan Mercer stood by the window of his penthouse, staring out over the glowing sea of New York lights. In his hand was Lily's old drawing, of a man and a little girl holding hands in the middle of the city. He whispered to himself, She was right, I'm not sad anymore, but this world still has too many people who want to make her hurt. His shadow stretched long across the floor, lonely but unyielding. Outside, the wind battered against the glass, its howl sounding like a vow. Tomorrow I begin to fight back, begin to fight. The conference room door on the 50th floor burst open. The sound cracked through the tense morning at Mercer Tower like thunder. Assistants flinched. The entire floor fell silent. Jonathan Mercer strode in, holding an iPad that still glowed with the headline, "Orphan Girl Fools Billionaire Mercer. Heartwarming or Hoax?" His eyes were bloodshot. He was no longer the composed CEO everyone knew, but a storm held tight, ready to break. "Where is Vanessa?" His voice was low and heavy, each word striking like a hammer. The staff exchanged nervous glances, none daring to answer, until one finally whispered, "She's in her office, sir." John said nothing. He walked out, his steps pounding against the floor like the sound of war drums. Amanda Lee hurried after him, breathless. "Mr. Mercer, please, calm down. Don't know. The line's already been crossed." The door to Vanessa Carr's office slammed open. A cup of coffee spilled across the desk. She looked up, startled, but quickly composed herself. "John? What?" The iPad hit the desk with a heavy thud, trembling from the impact. On its screen flashed the headline, the leaked photos, the vile comments. "Did you do this?" "What are you talking about?" Vanessa tried to sound calm. "Don't play stupid." His voice was sharp through clenched teeth. "Your people followed them. The photos, the hospital, the blood-stained cloth. You're the only one who had a reason to do this." Vanessa gripped her glass, her thin smile trembling. "I just wanted you to see the truth." "That girl isn't special, John. She's a child that was abandoned. The thing you're protecting is a lie." His fist slammed against the desk, sending everything rattling. "Don't you ever talk about her like that," he roared. "What do you know about special? She's braver than every person in this building wearing a suit. A child who risked everything to save her mother while the world turned its back. That makes her more special than any of you." Vanessa rose, her face pale. "You're protecting her as if she were your own daughter." "Maybe I am," he said without hesitation. She stepped back, her voice shaking. "I only wanted to protect the company's reputation." "Reputation?" John let out a dry, bitter laugh. "I'd rather lose all of Mercer Group than let a child be humiliated by heartless adults." Silence thickened like smoke. The only sound was their ragged breathing. Vanessa bit her lip, tears welling but refusing to fall. "You'll regret choosing her over me." John's eyes were cold as steel. "I regret not seeing how cruel you've become." He turned and walked out, leaving behind the trembling woman whose eyes burned with jealousy and defeat. That night, rain fell over the city. Jonathan Mercer drove alone out of Manhattan toward the Bronx. He stopped in front of Rachel's small apartment, where dim light glowed through the window. Inside, Lily was giggling softly, feeding her mother spoonfuls of soup. The sight clenched his chest. He stepped in, rain still dripping from his coat. "Mr. Mercer?" Rachel looked up, startled. "I need to ask you something," he said quietly, "and I want the truth." Rachel's face tensed. "What is it?" He drew a deep breath, his voice rough. "Lily, is she really your biological daughter?" The room fell silent. Raindrops tapped steadily on the roof. Rachel lowered her head, her hands trembling. After a pause that felt endless, she whispered, "No, I didn't give birth to her. 6 years ago, I found her abandoned behind a warehouse. There was a letter." "A letter?" John froze. Rachel nodded, pulling a yellowed envelope from an old wooden box under the bed. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. "I'm sick and can't raise my child. She was conceived after one night of mistake at Avalon Lounge. If anyone finds her, please raise her with love." Jonathan stood motionless. Avalon Lounge. The name echoed in his mind like an explosion. Memories flashed, dim lights, the taste of liquor, the blurred face of a woman he never remembered clearly. A chill ran down his spine. He understood that the real investigation was just beginning, and the truth behind the little girl named Lily could change everything. A feeling stirred deep within him, sharp and undeniable. Perhaps that child is my own blood. Rain fell endlessly through the night, washing New York's lights into long, glistening streaks like tears. In a small apartment in the Bronx, Jonathan Mercer sat motionless. Before him lay the old envelope Rachel Hart had just given him, its paper carrying the faint smell of damp and time. He unfolded the letter, reading again the trembling words of an unknown mother. I am ill. I cannot raise my child. She was conceived after a night of mistake at Avalon Lounge. The man doesn't know, and I don't even know his name. To whoever finds this, please love this child. Each word pierced straight through his heart. Avalon Lounge, the place he had visited once and vowed never to speak of again. The memories crashed back like a storm, pounding music, purple lights flashing wildly, a party of the elite that his friend Ethan Brooks had forced him to attend after a major business win. He remembered the strange taste of the drink, his head spinning, and then a dim hotel room filled with an unfamiliar scent of perfume. When he woke the next morning, chaos surrounded him. The woman beside him still slept, while he left quietly, carrying with him a shame he never dared to name again. Now, 6 years later, a little girl named Lily Hart had appeared, the same age his daughter would have been if fate hadn't taken her away. John gripped the letter, his voice rough. Rachel, I need a DNA test, immediately. Rachel looked at him in shock and worry. You think you're Lily's father? I'm not sure, he said, breath uneven. But if there's even the smallest chance, I need to know. 2 days passed, days that felt like years. In his Mercer Tower office, John neither ate nor slept. Hour after hour, he stared out the glass wall where the rain refused to stop. Amanda Lee entered, holding a sealed envelope. Mr. Mercer, the results are in. He stood, but his legs felt rooted to the floor. Amanda placed the envelope on his desk and whispered, I'll wait outside if you need me. When the door closed, only the ticking clock and his heavy breathing filled the room, the sound of a man standing between his past and his present. John tore open the envelope and unfolded the cold white paper. His eyes fell on a single bold line. Paternity match, 99.98%. Jonathan Mercer is the biological father of Lily Hart. The paper trembled in his hands. A strangled sound escaped him, not a sob, but something deeper. The cry of a soul that had just awakened after 6 years of numbness. He sank into his chair, burying his face in his hands. Images of Lily flooded his mind. Her bright eyes, her pure laughter, her innocent question. Sir, if I clean the desk well, will it make you happy? Now everything made sense. Why he smiled the first time he met her. Why his chest ached when she cried. Why her voice made him want to protect her. It was because she was his child. Without hesitation, he drove back to the Bronx through the still falling rain. When Rachel opened the door, she saw his face lit by a strange glow, part trembling, part overflowing with emotion. Lily was sitting at the table, coloring. The moment she saw him, she shouted joyfully, Mr. John! He knelt, arms open. Come here, Lily! She ran to him, giggling, and he hugged her tightly, so tightly it was as if he feared the world would disappear if he let go. Sir Lily looked up, puzzled. John's voice broke, tears gathering at the corners of his eyes, an emotion he had thought forever lost. No, sweetheart, he whispered, his voice trembling. I'm not just someone helping your mother anymore. Lily tilted her head. Then who are you? He placed his hand over his heart. "I'm your father, Lily. Your real father." Her eyes widened. 1 second, 2. Then a tiny sob slipped out. "Daddy, really?" John nodded and held her even tighter. "Yes, and I promise, from now on, you'll never have to be afraid, never have to work, and never have to cry alone again." Outside, the rain finally stopped. A thin beam of light cut through the gray sky. Inside that small room, a man had just found the piece of his soul he'd lost, and a little girl had just learned she was never truly an orphan. The next morning, Mercer Tower glowed with a strange energy. News about the orphan girl still flooded every corner of social media. Reporters crowded the gates, and everyone was waiting for one thing. What would billionaire Jonathan Mercer say? At exactly 9 o'clock, the emergency meeting bell echoed through the entire building. All executives, managers, and employees gathered in the glass conference hall on the 50th floor, the same room that had witnessed countless declarations of power. But today, the atmosphere was different. Tense, expectant, and edged with fear. The doors opened. Jonathan Mercer entered, his face calm and steady. Beside him was Lily Hart, now Lily Mercer, in a simple pink dress, her small hand tightly holding her father's. A soft wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd like wind over still water. John walked to the podium, the lights reflecting off his forehead. He carried no notes, only a folded DNA report tucked in his jacket sleeve. "I know," he began, his voice low but clear, "that all of you have read the news about me, and about this little girl." A pause. "And I will not deny it." Every gaze turned toward him, a few people holding their breath. This child is not a fraud, nor is she part of some PR scheme, as people claim. He stopped, looked down at Lily, then back to the audience. "She is my biological daughter." The words struck like thunder on a clear day. Gasps filled the air, a few mouths fell open. Amanda Lee, standing at the back, felt her eyes fill with tears. John continued, his tone deep but unwavering. 6 years ago, I lost my first child. I believed I would never feel love again. But fate sent Lily to me, a brave little girl who went out to find work to save her mother. And I realized she wasn't just here to be helped. She was here to heal me. He took a deep breath, gripping the microphone. I am not ashamed of this truth. I am proud. Because Lily is proof that love is stronger than rumors, stronger than prejudice, and stronger than the past. The first sound of applause came, from Amanda, then another. And then the entire room erupted. The applause rolled like thunder, mingling with quiet sobs and trembling smiles. In the far corner, Vanessa Carr sat frozen, her eyes wide. She couldn't look away from the man who had once been so cold, now bending down with a gentle smile for the little girl calling him Dad. Silent tears streamed down her face. John bent down and lifted Lily into his arms. "Everyone," he said, his voice steady but warm. "This is Lily Mercer, my daughter, and the reason I learned to smile again." The room rose to its feet. Applause roared, echoing through every floor, spilling out across the tower. Beyond the glass walls, the sun broke through the clouds, pouring golden light onto the floor. In that light, Lily smiled brightly, wrapping her arms around her father's neck, while Jonathan Mercer closed his eyes, letting tears blend into a happiness he had never known before. That day, a billionaire did not just declare his power. He declared that he had found his heart again. That afternoon, Mercer Tower gradually fell quiet. The golden glow of sunset painted the glass walls, reflecting the image of a father and daughter walking out of the conference hall while applause still echoed behind them. The news spread like wildfire. Every major TV network carried the same headline: Jonathan Mercer reveals his secret daughter, a story that moved America to tears. On the 45th floor, Vanessa Carr sat motionless, her hand clenched around a cup of cold coffee. Lily's bright, happy smile kept replaying in her mind, along with the proud look in Jonathan's eyes when he said, "My daughter." She felt small, empty, ashamed. A soft knock came at the door. "Amanda, you're still here?" Vanessa asked hoarsely. "I just wanted to give you this," Amanda said, placing the evening paper on the desk. The headline read in bold letters, "The Truth About Kindness." Then she left, saying nothing more. Vanessa sat still for a long time, staring at those words. For years, she had lived in a world of calculation, private meetings and cold handshakes, believing that power was the only thing that earned respect. But today, a 6-year-old girl had made an entire city bow its head. The first tear fell. She picked up her phone and called the CEO's office. Jonathan's voice came through the speaker, low and steady. "Vanessa?" "John, I need to see you. Just 5 minutes." When the door opened, the afternoon light had turned amber. Jonathan sat by his desk. Lily was asleep in his arms, her head resting on his shoulder. Vanessa stopped in her tracks, overwhelmed. The sight stole every word she had rehearsed. "I'm not here to justify myself," she said, her voice trembling. "I was wrong, John. I let jealousy control me. I hurt an innocent child, and I made you lose your faith in me." Jonathan looked at her. There was no anger left in his eyes, only weariness and compassion. "Vanessa, I don't need you to kneel. I just hope you remember one thing. Real strength doesn't come from pushing others down, but from lifting someone up." Vanessa swallowed hard and stepped closer to Lily. She knelt beside the little girl and whispered, "Lily, I'm sorry. I forgot that your smile is worth more than all the reputation adults chase." She gently brushed the soft hair from the child's forehead, then turned to Jonathan, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you for not destroying me, even though I already destroyed myself." Jonathan stood, his voice calm. "Forgiveness doesn't make us weak, Vanessa. It only makes us strong enough to start over." She nodded and walked toward the door. Before leaving, Vanessa turned back to see the father and daughter still holding each other in the warm afternoon light. For the first time in her life, Vanessa Carr understood that what she had been searching for was never power. It was peace. And as the door closed behind her, her world, along with all her ambitions, fell into silence. A week after the shocking public announcement, the autumn wind swept through the city, carrying with it the chill of the new season. But in the quiet suburban neighborhood of Westchester, sunlight still poured gently over a pristine white mansion, the new home Jonathan Mercer had just given to Rachel and Lily. "Do you like it?" Jonathan asked softly. Lily ran through the hallway, her laughter echoing brightly. "I love it. There's my own room, pink curtains, and a bookshelf as big as a castle." Rachel stood by the doorway, her hands trembling in disbelief. "Mr. Mercer, I can't accept this gift." Jonathan smiled. "Don't call me Mr. Mercer anymore. You're the woman who raised my daughter for 6 years, when I didn't even know she existed. If anyone owes anyone, it's me who owes you." Rachel fell silent, her eyes glistening as she slowly nodded. In the warm afternoon light stood 3 people. A billionaire who had once lost faith, a single mother beaten down by life, and a child who once begged for work to save her mother, now together under one roof, where warmth began to replace the shadows of the past. Later that day, Amanda Lee arrived, carrying a stack of folders. "This is your new work contract, Ms. Rachel," Amanda said with a smile. "Mr. Mercer wants you to lead the Mercer Foundation, managing projects that help abandoned children." Rachel froze. "Me?" Jonathan nodded. No one understands those children better than someone who once saved a little girl with her own heart. Rachel's voice broke. I don't know what to say except thank you. No need to thank me, Jonathan replied, his tone deep and warm. We're family. Lily wrapped her arms around his neck, giggling. Daddy, I want to help other kids too. He laughed, gently ruffling her hair. You'll be the greatest inspiration for this foundation, my little princess. That night, as darkness settled, the new house glowed softly in the calm neighborhood. In the living room, Lily had fallen asleep on the couch, clutching her latest drawing. A house, 3 people standing at the door, and above them the words scrawled in childish handwriting, My family. Jonathan sat beside her, his gaze tender. Rachel brought him a cup of hot tea. You know, she said quietly, if I hadn't found Lily that day, I probably wouldn't have survived either. Jonathan looked into the steaming cup, the misty reflection showing his tired but peaceful face. Maybe God sent her, he murmured, to save both of us. The room fell into a tranquil silence. Outside, the autumn wind whispered through the trees, scattering leaves across the newly paved path. For the first time in years, Jonathan Mercer didn't hear the ticking of loneliness, but the echo of a child's laughter inside his heart. That night, he realized life doesn't return what it has taken away, but sometimes it gives something far more precious, the chance to begin again. On Monday morning, the New York sky was unusually clear. Sunlight poured over the streets lined with golden leaves, reflecting off a small sign at the gate. Mercer Foundation, where hope begins. A long line of cars stretched down the road. Reporters, guests, social workers, and the children being helped by the foundation all had gathered for the launch of the Mercer Foundation, a new initiative founded by Jonathan Mercer and directed by Rachel Hart. But among the crowd, the one who drew the most attention was a 6-year-old girl in a white dress, Lily Mercer. She held her father's hand, looking up at the newly inaugurated building with sparkling eyes. Daddy, this is the place where I'll help other kids, right? Jonathan bent down, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Yes, my little princess. You'll be the reason many other children get to smile again. Camera shutters clicked rapidly, but this time there was no gossip, no scorn. People only saw a man once known for his steel heart, now smiling softly beside his daughter, and they understood that the most valuable thing he owned wasn't in his stock portfolio, but in his arms. Inside the grand hall, light glowed warmly across the stage. Rachel Hart stood at the microphone, her voice emotional but steady. 6 years ago, I found a baby in the dark. Today, that baby has become the light of an entire corporation and of my own heart. The Mercer Foundation isn't just a charity project. It's a promise that no child will ever be left behind again. Applause filled the room, rising and echoing across the hall. Jonathan stepped up, taking Rachel's hand, then looked toward the front row where his daughter sat. And he paused, his voice trembling slightly. I'm not here today as a CEO. I'm here as a father, a man who lost all faith and was taught by his own daughter what kindness truly means. He lifted the DNA report before the cameras. I once thought fate had taken my child from me, but the truth is, fate was only keeping her safe until it was time to bring her back. Lily ran onto the stage and threw her arms around him. The audience rose to their feet, applause and quiet sobs blending into one sound of pure emotion. The spotlight shone on 3 figures, a man, a woman, and a child, standing together in a small circle that radiated warmth through every heart watching. Later that afternoon, as the event ended, Amanda Lee saw the guests off at the gate. She turned to Jonathan and said softly, You know, sir, Today, I saw a different Mercer, not an empire of finance, but an empire of compassion. Jonathan smiled faintly, maybe because for the first time, I did something right, not for the company, but for my heart. That evening, on the terrace of the Westchester mansion, Jonathan sat with Lily under a sky full of stars. The breeze was gentle, and the city's noise faded far away. "Daddy," Lily whispered, "can I help other children like me one day?" "You can do anything, as long as you never forget where you came from," he said slowly. "Never forget the day you walked into Mercer Tower barefoot, but with a heart braver than anyone's." Lily rested her head on his shoulder. "Daddy, I think Mommy Rachel is my angel." Jonathan smiled. "And you, my love, are my miracle." Inside the house, Rachel stood by the window, watching them quietly. Moonlight wrapped around her face, soft and tender, like life itself, answering all her years of struggle. She gently closed the curtain and exhaled. For the first time, she truly felt alive, not in fear, but in love. The next morning, Lily Mercer walked through the gates of her new school. She wore a crisp uniform and carried a backpack embroidered with her name in golden thread. The other students whispered, "Who's that girl?" Lily simply smiled, bowed politely, and said, "I'm Lily. I used to have nothing, but now I have a family." "Oh." The teacher smiled and took her hand, leading her into class. Outside, Jonathan stood watching, eyes glistening. On the school's notice board, someone later found a small note written in a child's handwriting. One Lily had pinned up after class. "Never be afraid to love again, because love can build a home." As the sun set, the city glowed golden and warm. In the cozy Westchester home, laughter filled the air, blending with the soft piano notes Jonathan played with his daughter. When Lily placed her tiny hand over his, she whispered, "Daddy, from now on, I'm going to draw another picture. What will you draw?" "A man who used to be sad, but now always smiles." Jonathan laughed softly. "I think you've already drawn it, Lily. It's the picture we're living in right now." Outside the window, dawn began to rise again, and in that light, the story of the little girl who once went out to find work to save her mother and ended up finding the father she never knew, came to an end, not with tears, but with smiles. Because sometimes the greatest miracle in life is simply finding each other at the right moment. And so, the journey of Lily Mercer came to an end. From a little girl who once walked barefoot through a glittering city, to becoming the light that reignited the heart of a man who had lost faith in the world. Her story is not only about the miracle of destiny, but also about the power of love and compassion, those small, quiet forces that can change an entire life. Sometimes we pass each other in the crowd without realizing that a single smile, an outstretched hand, or a simple act of kindness might be enough to save someone from despair. If this story touched your heart, leave a like to help spread its message of love, and hit subscribe so you won't miss the next stories, where ordinary miracles are still waiting to be told. Because no matter how much the world changes, there will always be someone trying to find their way home, and perhaps you are the miracle someone else has been waiting for.